the digital assignment number 3 is basically application of the game theory. Number 3, it's basically the application of the game theory, or it can even called applied game theory. I think I can zoom a bit so that you can understand much better. Right. So I'm going to explain you with some sample things so that you can extrapolate it to a bigger level. So this is applied game theory. This is digital assignment number 3. Right. So what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to give you a simplified example. But for digital assignment number 3, you need to really produce a large game which has got 10 by 10 matrix, something like that. You have to make a 10 by 10 game. Let's say that, right? So what basically this assignment is just to give yourself a good idea of what is game theory, how it is generally used in a real life, and more importantly, how do you solve this particular game and arrive an optimal solution? Especially you use a pure strategy or mixed strategy and find out the value of the game using dominance property and so on. Right. So whatever we have taught in the previous classes about game theory, all this gets applied in this particular assignment. So that's why I choose to teach game theory prior to the other lectures in operations, just like queuing theory, inventory control, and something like that. Right. All right, so let's take a look at the sample thing. So I've got 4 criterions, like criteria 1, then criteria 2, criteria 3, and criteria 4. So the scenario of this game, I'll write it here. So this is just employees appraisal, can even call percentage. So in a company, every year the HR manager or the team lead generally lists down different criteria based on which the appraisal is given, something like that. This is something like an incentive. We can even call an incentive or a performance incentive or something like that to their employees, right? So the first criteria is just like punctuality, like how punctual the employee is. So this is for all the employees, some certain employees or something like that, for eligible employees or something like that. So this is a different criteria. And next one will be effective. So it is like how do they use how, or I can even call this as like ability to accomplish the task. So that's basically the description. Punctuality is like can even call their working hours, duration, and reporting to, and leaves, you can even call like minimal leaves, who takes minimal leaves, something like that. So that's basically the punctuality. Then we talked about effective. There's another term called efficient, like ability to accomplish a task, but not only accomplishing the task, accomplishing the task perfectly, and also within deadline, or you can even call deadline will be fine, deadline. So this is efficient, efficiency of a person. And finally, I can even call this as experience. So this is something like knowledge or skill of their one. So if I'm a HR manager, I propose these, this criteria. So what I do is I propose these criteria and I just prepare some appraisal for the employees, right? So this is my criteria. Um, this is um, this is the description of the criteria. Right. So this is basically the stuff that we're gonna try to achieve now, right? So this is I'm an employee here now. So say I'm an employer. Um, Supposing I'm an employer, so this will be my strategies, or this will be my four criterions, four criterions, and same way that gets compared. And this is all right. So this is employee's perspective. Right. So this is actually the one which we've been trying to cover, like right. So this is what so far we have covered, like mathematical problems, like this and that. Right. Right. So punctuality. This thing is the diagonals, no? I just mark yellow because it's the same criterion gets mapped. Then 2 and 1, that's gets mapped here, and 3 and 1, a different color, 3 and 1, and 4 and 1, 4 and 1, so which is got a different color, yeah, orange. Then 3 and 2, and 2 and 3, so these two cells are the same. And 4 and 2, 4 and 2 have got the same option. And these two also have got same options. So this is basically the playoff matrix for employer, sorry, uh, playoff matrix for employer. And can you hold this so much, right? So I'm gonna say, for example, if a person is punctual, and employer thinks punctuality is okay, coming to office and working for 8 hours and going early. I mean, it's going after 8 hours. It's punctual. Punctual is good, but in terms of employees, it's good. But employers, it may not be a good criterion. It is a criterion, but it may not be a very good criterion for productivity. You cannot determine the productivity by having a list of people who comes to office very early or at that time, and most at that time. Sometimes people who work who commute to the office late but takes a long time to leave, or they leave very late so that their productivity is high. So that's something like by which we cannot make any rudimentary, you know, judgment or something like that. So that's what basically it's not a very good criteria, something like that. So they just say it's -5. Say it's not a very good factor to. It's a good factor for other purpose, but not a very good factor to give incentive, something like that. That's what basically it is given like -5. This is just something, it's my perspective. It's an example. But if you think if the punctuality is very important for you as a decision maker to give incentive, then you can give higher grading or something like that, right? So this, I say it's not a very good factor. So I'm just, but this is a good factor for employee perspective. So that's why we have given -5, but not for an employer perspective. So -5 does not means -5%. You reduce 5% incentive. It's not like that. So it's just something like not a very good, just like a matrix. Don't think as a percentage of appraisal, but just a matrix. So you have something called 0 to 50 scale, something like 0 to 50 scale, and you just or can even take down this to be -50 to 50 scale, positive 50 scale. So this is how you just -50 is very very poor, 50 is excellent. So that's scale. So you can define the scale. I mean, and this thing like being effective and being punctual. That's correct, no? So sometimes they come early and then they accomplish the task. That's a very good point. So I give them like 10. Then I think I give them 5, not 10, because this is very important. Efficient and becoming punctual. Efficient is finishing within the deadline and they come punctual. This is a really a nice option. So I give them 10. So I value more than being effective. Effective is giving a work and finishing it. They can take 2 days, something like that. But efficient is finishing that particular day itself, like something like the apt time or optimal time, finishing it in optimal time. Right. Then knowledge, experience, like experience in being punctual. It's also a good thing, but it's not as high as this 3 and 1. So and developing knowledge and within their availability or within their work time is fine, right? And then the other factor remains the same. So green, I just match this green, then this, and so it is something like that. So it is if 1 and 3, 2 is here, then 2 and 1 should also be the same. So that's why I just. But sometimes if you can give a minor variation, that's also fine, absolutely fine. So this is a simple example. So I'm just portraying it like we don't have to look into that aspect. Now I'll just say being effective and effective. I just give 15. I'll just quickly run through this. And being efficient and efficient, this I value the most. So I just give them 20. And experience, sometimes experience I value even more better because experience and experience I just give 40. The same concept gets mapped. And then 3 and 2. So 3 is efficient and 2 is effective. So that's something like very important. So I give them 25, 25. Then knowledge gaining and effective. So it's fine. It's a good thing. I'll just give them 20, and 20 comes here as well, right? And then being effective, efficient. I'm sorry, being efficient and also experience or knowledge development. That's a very very fruitful thing. So I give something like value of 30, right? So we have got only one negative, so other things are fairly good, right? So this is the matrix that I develop if I am an employer to gauge, the to develop the performance appraisal strategy for my employees. So this is how I value. But even if you do the same problem by yourself, you might have a different opinion about this. But it's absolutely no problem because it's your perspective, right? So as my perspective, I've just given. So the assignment is all about that. Like I want individual, strategies and individual scenarios. You should not copy the scenarios for this assignment. So it's an individual assignment. So try to really focus on different aspects in a real time. So I'll talk about that later. And then once you develop this, you can solve it by any means. First step, what you will do is first we'll be finding out the row minimum. First we'll be finding row minimum, then maximum of minimum. Let me highlight this. Row minimum and the maximum of minimum, and then we'll be focusing on the column maximum and the minimum of the maximum. So sometimes I keep on saying this mnemonic, but students still forgets during exam. So here maximum and minimax. So which comes first is you can even say in LPP we'll be doing maximization problem initially, then we'll be looking into minimization problem. So understand this. So once you understand this, then minimax is pretty easy. It's opposite of that. Nobody's gonna do maximum and maximum. So understand this is maximum then minimax, right? So I'm just gonna find a minimum of this particular row. This, I'll just say okay, right. So then I can put maximum of this column. So all these values are just given arbitrarily. So I just assigned arbitrarily based on some logic like the comparison or something like that. Right. So I'm gonna find maximum of the minimum is 10. I hopefully get then I'm gonna find minimum of this maximum value. It's also 10. So which means it's a pure strategy, right? So luckily we got pure strategy, but if you take a bigger matrix like 10 by 10 game, you may not get a pure strategy or do not focus on pure strategy. Just try to accelerate your analogy to yield, mixer strategy, something like that. Right. So this is your assignment. Right. So 10 by 10 games is pretty heavy. So kindly take a look at that. And it's a pure strategy. We have a definite saddle point. Just I'll just put it. I just change the font to red. Instead of red, I can change it to violet or something. Yeah. So violet will be difficult to understand. To red. Here is that. Here is a 10. Here is a 10. Here is this 10. So this 10. This is kind of a pivot. But not only that, there's another thing here. Here is also 10. So I can. So there are two saddle point exist. Remember, this is what we have done earlier also. It is 3 and 1 and 1 and 3. So saddle point 1 comma 3 and 3 comma 1. And the value of the game game equals to 10. And what that 10 represent is that, so employer should look for 3 and 1, which is punctuality and efficient. So the people who have got a higher rank in this in their evaluation sheet, they will be given a good score. Like the employer can decide. Like people who have got punctual and efficient can be given a 25% hike. So this is typically the decision making. A sample example that I just wanted to share with you. Say you can take a 10 by 10 game scenario and try to do that, and you can do it in Excel itself, like what I've done here. This video gets uploaded in YouTube, so you can take a look at that also. So that you can make multiple analogy also. Like the next thing is like 5. You can look into 5 and you can list down that, and this is 25. People who have got this can get a hike of 25, and something like punctual and punctual is pretty less. Say they can give something like 1% hike or something like that. So negative value does not means you have to give the negative. That is just to check whether it's a prominent factor or something like that. So quality and punctuality. So this is one of the important scenario in human resource management, or the organizational behavior, or employee benefits or something like that. Say if you have this clear cut matrix and mathematical way, and if you give incentive to your employees, they really appreciate it, because it is something like not random. Like it is not like I like X, so I give him or her the higher appraisal or something like that. So this is typically sample 3 by 3 game. I mean not 3 by 3, it's a 4 by 4 game that I've just made it. Not necessarily. Sometimes punctuality for employee may not be a factor itself. So in that case, you can probably delete that, and you can even compare this 3 with this 4 factors, something like that, right? It's not need not be a square matrix. It could be anything. So that's up to you. So kindly try to finish it before before FAT lab exam. So I'll just give the date. The submission is in Moodle, and this is your digital assignment number.